it's Russell Graves, and it's springtime here at Hackberry Farms. And you know what springtime means? Baby chickens. And who doesn't love baby chickens? On today's video, I'm going to share with you 6 ways that you can ensure your baby chickens get off to a good start. Tip number 1, start with good stock, and that's really important. When you go to your feed store or your chicken supplier, when you're picking out your chickens that you're going to bring home with you, the first thing you want to do is do a general inventory of the chickens. Make sure that they're all really active. Look at their eyes. Are their eyes bright and wide open? Are their heads drooping or not? Now, if their heads are drooping because they're sleeping, that's one thing. But if they stand in there when the other chickens are really active and their head's still drooping, that may be a sign of problem. So you want to avoid those chickens. So make sure you start with good stock. Pick out good, healthy chickens in the beginning before you bring them to your farm. Tip number 2, once you get your baby chicks home, in order to keep them healthy, you'll want to provide fresh water every single day. So that means when you check them every day, take your old water out. Don't waste the water. Use it to water a house plant or water your garden, but put fresh water and bring it back in every day. One of the tricks I use to get the chickens drinking quick is I'll put a colored marble in the water. And that colored marble attracts the chicken's curiosity, and they'll go over to it and begin to peck it. And as they peck on it, they'll realize there's water where they're pecking, and that helps train the chickens really quick where their water is. Tip number 3, aside from fresh water, you're going to want to ensure they have fresh food daily. When I start my chickens off, I start them off with the lid of the feeder open, and so that way they can find the food quicker. Now, I only do that for a couple of days because after a while, they start scratching around in their feed and kicking it all out. So once they find their food and they know where it is, close the lid on that feeder. And then later on, they're going to want to start trying to roost on that. As the roosting instinct kicks in, they'll want to roost on top of the feeder, and then they start pooping down in their own feed. So every single day, make sure they have plenty of food and plenty of fresh food and clean their feeder out. Tip number 4, when I bring my chickens home, I put pine shavings in as bedding for them, and that's a really good bedding material. The problem is, though, is they're drinking water and they're spilling water out, or as they're spilling feed out, or as they poop on their bedding, it becomes soiled over time. So one of the things you'll want to do to ensure their health is clean that bedding often. You don't have to clean it every day, and it's hard to say how often you should clean the bedding because obviously the more chicks you have, the faster they're going to spoil it. And so if you're starting with a small flock, about 12, maybe about once a week, you'll want to clean some of the bedding out and put fresh bedding in. And again, that'll help ensure their health for the long term. 5th tip is make sure you've got a heat lamp in place. And the heat lamps I use are just red infrared heat lamps. They don't provide a lot of light, so that way if the chickens need to rest at night, they can. But it provides an ample amount of heat to keep them warm. You got to remember, when these chickens are little, mom is the one that wraps her wings around them to keep them warm. And without mom, we've still got to supplement some way to keep them warm until they're fully feathered. And so I always put a heat lamp in place. Now, how close should you put the heat lamp to the beddings? Well, you really need to let the chickens tell you that, because the closer you get down, if it's too hot, the chickens just won't get under the lamp. If it's too high, they'll try to crowd underneath the lamp. So you really have to find that happy medium. Sometimes it means you're moving the lamp daily, because in the springtime, as the temperatures fluctuate like they tend to do, one day you may have to lower it if it's really cold to keep them warm. Another day, if it's really warm outside, you may have to raise it back up. So that's another good excuse to go out and check your chickens daily and just monitor their health overall. And the last tip, tip number 6, is just keep an eye on your chickens every day, and that's so important. Make sure you check them every day. Just like when you pick them up from the feed store, make sure you don't have any chickens in there that are kind of lethargic, their heads are drooping, their eyes are closed, they just don't look well kempt. That's a good sign that you've got a chicken that's getting sick on you. If you find one being sick, isolate it from the rest of the chickens, because they live in such close contact. The diseases can really spread quick. So if you have a sick chicken, isolate it, check with your vet on what the best recourse is to treat that baby chick and get it back with the rest of the flock. But it's best just to check them on a daily basis and just ensure their overall health, and to make sure those chickens are healthy and they don't spread any disease to any other chickens. This isn't a tip, but just some general advice is, how quick can I move my chickens out after their babies? Well, as a rule of thumb, what I do is once they're fully feathered, typically in my experience, it takes about 6 weeks until they're fully feathered. And at that point, I don't put them outside cold turkey. I'll kind of acclimate them slowly. So in other words, I may move them out to their permanent pen. Right now we have them in a brooder barn. I may move them out to a permanent pen, keep a heat lamp on them at night, and just let them start getting used to the outside air all the time. And then over time, you wean them off the heat lamp. By then, if they're fully feathered, they should have enough to be able to keep them warm at night. And then over time, you can start letting them out into the chicken run with the rest of the chickens.